Okay. Well, hello and welcome to part one of a 4-part webinar series focused on the Native Connections approach, best practices and tools. On behalf of the Native Connections team and contracting officers representative, Maureen Madison and Jan Dunbar Cooper. The next slide. We'd like to welcome you to this webinar today. And again, the views expressed in this webinar do not necessarily represent the views, policies, and positions of the Center for Mental Health Services, the Center for Substance Abuse Prevention, the Center for Substance Abuse Treatment, the Center for Behavioral Health Statistics and Quality, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Today is going to be a very interactive webinar, and we would really like to have you participate with us as we move through each of the slides. So please use the raise hand function if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, which we hope that you will do. And also please use the chat box, to type in questions or answers or comments as we move through each of these slides. Again, this is going to be a really interactive webinar, and we do welcome your participation today. Okay. At this time, we'd like to open us in a good way, and I'd like to turn this over to Idella King to do that for us. Idella?
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be at this time. My name is Idella King, and I'm a member of the Northern Arapaho tribe. I was raised up in Browning and in Missoula. Today, getting started and opening in a good way, I'd like to offer a small prayer of thanks. I've already lit some of our medicine. Today, I chose to use sweetgrass. Sweetgrass is one of the medicines I was able to go and pick with some of my students about 2 years ago. And when we were talking about harvesting the sweetgrass and then braiding it together, the intentions, the thoughts, the prayers that went into this, I think about that today as I sit here with all of you guys. So again, just a little prayer of thanks. Ayo napi natus, ayo spatapio, ayo kokomekasin, ayo kipataki, ayo apan. Spomokina, each and every one of us today and our families, Creator, Father God. I just ask that you help us in a good way, that you bless us in a good way, and that you help us to come together with our hearts open and our minds waiting for those good words to come. Thank you, Creator, for allowing us to be here today. Thank you for allowing us to gather in this beautiful sacred space that we've created on the internet. Thank you. Aho. And I think I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Deborah.
Hey, well, thank you very much for that beautiful opening. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Deborah Rattler. I'm one of the lead grantee technical assistants for Native Connections, and I've been with the program since their first cohort in 2014. I'm Grovant from North Central Montana at the Fort Belknap Indian Community. Sarah?
Thank you, Deborah. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Pearson, and I'm part of the old guard like Deborah Rattler. We've been doing this work since the first cohort with Native Connections. Greetings. And I'm calling in from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. It's usually sunny, but today it's rainy, but it's a good day. I'll turn this over to Bobby.
Yat a Ashi hian slot hutness on the bushes chin to quite heglini dasha cheg his anisha dashanella. I am Salt Clan, and I am born for the Tangle people. My maternal grandfathers are the Water Flows Together, and my paternal grandfathers are the Hopi tribe, the Bear Clan. And I am a grantee technical assistant, and I am very grateful to be here with everybody today. So welcome, everybody.
Right. This is a 4-part series on the Native Connections approach. And so one of the things I wanted to do right now is to take a minute just to talk about the overall learning objectives for all 4 of these sections that you're going to be seeing in the coming weeks. Today we're going to be really focusing on how you're going to manage your community partnerships and collaborative events. This is where you're going to be looking at how to assess your community strengths and identify the partners that's going to help you throughout the life of your grant. And this webinar is also going to look at a field-tested tool to help you manage the collection, tracking, an analysis of all of your existing community systems. And we look at these because these here are what's going to be impacting your youth and your families as you move through this program. You know, our second webinar, part 2, is going to be looking at how to use your community's readiness for change. This is also going to be looking at, you know, the community readiness process, and you're going to learn a little bit more about how to use your dimensional scores and how to use those for the change process as you get ready to move into your strategic action plan. And that will take you into part 3, which is going to be a roadmap for success. And again, we're going to provide a tour of the strategic action plan template. We're going to explore SMART. What does that mean? How do you use that? You know, we're also going to look at how to do a really good vision statement, explore timelines, and really give you an overview of what our outcomes and how important those are to your strategic action plan so that you are successful in the program that you're going to be working through this next few years. And then our last webinar, part 4, which will probably be in January in our new year, you know, that's where we're going to really look at how to keep you on the path. You want to stay on the path to success. And again, we'll be looking at, you know, meaning outcome data, you know, how to modify your SAP, your strategic action plan for the coming years. As things work out for you, or maybe they don't work out, how do you adjust that strategic action plan? And we're also going to be looking at how do you build sustainability into the heart of your program right from day one. So that's going to be the learning objectives for these next few weeks. Next slide. And again, you know, just bring you back that today is going to be part 1, managing community partnerships and collaborative events. And I think as you go through this webinar with us today, you're really going to realize how important it is to have those community partnerships. And for every event that you do, the more people or programs or organizations that you have to help collaborate with, the more successful you're going to be and the wider spread you will have in your communities. So I think we're ready to get going with this. So I will turn this over to Bobby at this time.
Thank you, Deborah. So as Deborah shared, you know, we're going to be, in this particular webinar, we're going to be really focusing on the first part of in regards to collaborating and networking. As you can see with the graph that's on the screen, the Native Connections approach is a indigenous adaptation, if you will, of the public health model and the strategic prevention framework. Those are kind of the tools that were used to develop this model. The Native Connections approach was created and developed specifically for the American Indians and the Alaska Natives communities as they move forward in addressing issues such as suicide and substance abuse within their communities. And what stemmed and how this approach, I guess, seeded was a collaboration effort from the Native Connections team, the Native communities, and the SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration government project officers. So everyone kind of came to the table to try to think about and brainstorm ways that would help our Native communities to address these particular issues of suicide and substance misuse. And so thus came the Native Connections approach. Now, when we're looking at the approach and we're looking at this model, you'll notice that it's in a circle, much like how the Native community already thinks. You know, this is a thinking in a circular manner is the natural thought process of the Native people. And within this, if you look at the at this model, you can see that it's divided into 4 sections. And what Deborah was talking about earlier in regards to part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4, each one of those parts are from this model. And so the first part we're going to be looking at is the yellow part. It's going to be the right side of this model, and it's going to be that little brown golden um, um, section of the model. And this is where we're going to begin with this model. This is, in this particular area, you will find what we call the community systems analysis, the CSA. This is the where you will find the communities within your community, where you begin to assess the community's strength and their protective factors within your community, because we all are Native communities, because of the resiliency of Native people. We all have these inner strengths and these protective factors that already exist. So the CSA kind of helps with bringing all of that together and helps identify all those things. Another great thing about the community systems analysis is it begins the seed portion of networking and connecting with potential partners within your community. Communities as a way to track when you develop your strategic action plan, which is the SAP, over the lifetime of your grant. So that's the golden brownish part. Then we move and we continue on to the brown section, which is the community readiness model. The community readiness model is a very useful tool that helps to identify your community's readiness to change. We all work towards that, trying to make a positive impact on our communities in the movement towards change. And so the community readiness model helps to move that process along. The community readiness model helps to identify scores that identify just what level your community is at. Within the scores of the community readiness are one, for instance, the score of a 1 is when a community has no awareness, and then it goes all the way up to level or score 9, which is a high level of community ownership. So your community will fall somewhere within that range from 1 to 9. And the really awesome thing about the community readiness model is that once you identify your score, there are approaches and strategies that are provided within the toolkit that will help you to meet your community's level of change. So when you do the community readiness model, it's not as we go through and with the series, you'll start to you'll have a more understanding of the community readiness model and how and exactly what those stages are and what those strategies look like. We then move on to the black section of the model. This area is where we find the strategic action. Your and within the SAP, it aligns really closely with the community readiness model. They're almost like they run parallel with each other. The SAP helps you make helps you identify and look for clear visions for change for your community, and it almost has a type of a roadmap, if you will, that will lead you and work you through towards that ultimate goal of where you want your community to go. You'll find that the SAP is what we call a living document, meaning that it changes as your community moves forward in its process of whether the changes happen, or maybe even if changes don't happen. But it moves. It's a living document that just kind of moves throughout the whole cycle of your grant. And as we come across and keep going around the model, we then find the implementation of the strategic action plan. That's in the white stage, or the white phase. In this final stage, we'll find where we collect all the data, the outcome data, and finding ways to sustain our positive community changes that were created by the grant. So whenever we get to this portion, we'll have identifying information that will help us to find ways of what to measure and how to report these outcomes, and how and what strategies and how to use these strategies to impact our communities. In other words, some questions that might be answered in this area are, did the activity that you did in your community, did it move your program towards the goal of your strategic action plan? Did it stay true and move you in the direction of your mission? And then you can look to see if it was worth the effort. Was all the work that was put into this activity, the outcomes that came out of it, did it show that it was something positive? In this section as well, it's important that the leadership, community members, and partnering agencies or programs understand the strategic action plan and also receive updates. Sharing this data is real important to give and share that back to your community, because this helps the plan move towards sustainability and be a successful program. And when we go through the next few series, we're going to be looking at those things and getting into some of these, into these other areas, the community readiness model, the SAP, and the implementation of the SAP in a little more detail. But this is just the introduction for today's presentation. Next slide. So we want to know a little more about our grantees. If you wouldn't mind putting inside of the chat, sharing, or maybe sharing with us what's your greatest lesson that you learned about in regards to managing partnerships or engaging partners in the joint event of planning. How did you share some ideas with us and let us know what cohort you are. If you're a returning or a new grantee, we'd like to know a little bit about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Bobby, this is Sarah. I'm wondering, as they're thinking about how they've managed partnerships or engaged partners, how have you tracked how you are managing your partnerships or engaging partners? And some of the things that, this system that Bobby just described, the Native Connections approach, is very sophisticated and very savvy. We've thrown a lot of acronyms at you, and people don't normally talk like that, CSA, SAP, CRM. But it's just to say that this grant, the Native Connections from SAMHSA, is really nudging programs to get a little bit more savvy about how you track and manage your partnerships and how you engage partners and how you collect that data. It's a data-driven world anymore, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think Carrie Dallas says that partners are looking for partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes. You know, we have a number of grantee technical assistants on our webinar today, and I'd like to invite them also to share about what have they learned from their grantees about how they have managed partnerships, or how have they engaged partners, you know, in joint planning events. Because I know our grantees, they put on some pretty amazing events
yeah.
that I've heard about. And, you know, even the grantees that I work with, you know, I think about some of the walks that they've done. We've got one grantee that did a camp in a box during COVID. That took it took some collaboration efforts to really make that a success. You know, so I'd really invite everybody to just, you know, give us some ideas, or, you know, share with us a little bit about how you have really seen, you know, grantees managing partnerships.
With sticky notes and emails printed out. Wired notepad.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. Okay. You know, one of the things too about our partnerships is that, you know, really strong and diverse partnerships, you know, it's really, it always amazes me at who my grantees end up partnering with in their community. A lot of times it's partners that they might not even have thought of at the beginning of their programs. But I think once they go through that community systems analysis process with their GTA, they really, you know, really start looking outside the box, really looking for other partners that are doing, you know, something similar, you know, that they can share resources with. You know, so think about, you know, why is it important to really, you know, develop these strong partnerships? What have you done, or how have you really managed, you know, to maintain a strong or diverse partnerships? Again, I'd invite you to answer in our chat box. We also have, you can also, you know, at the bottom of your screen, at those little icons at the bottom, there's a little one there that says reactions. If you'd like to raise your hand to say something, or if you'd like to unmute yourself to share a few words with us, you know, please take time to do that. You know, we'd really welcome that also.
Tina Jackson says, she says, this is Jackie Lloyd Randolphi from cohort 6. We as a team talk a lot about how to build relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, I'm wondering, Deborah, if anyone has any interesting stories about reaching out to law enforcement, for example. I mean, law enforcement, they're very much engaged out there in the community, and they're a resource that doesn't get tapped as often as they could. Local grocery stores and others, there's so many community partnership possibilities out there. I wonder if they've got anything interesting. Oh, Carrie Dallas said, ways to leverage funding through donations. Nice. Corporations and people are always looking for tax breaks. That's
Good
the
one.
truth.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to go back to Jackie Lloyd Randolphi's remark about, you know, as a team that they talk a lot about how to build relationships. And, you know, Jackie, Jackie's program is one of the programs that I work with as their GTA, the Native American Development Corporation in Billings, Montana. And that program has literally blown me away sometimes with the activities that they've done. I think in their first or second year, they did a really strong young women's conference that had over 30 community collaborations, programs that collaborated with them. And it was a really impressive event that they that was really successful for their community. And I think they're replicating that again in the coming years. But again, that took their whole team to pull that off, and it was really successful. You know, I think Tina Jackson, she said, what can we do to support them to show interest in their mission? We try to go to their events, even if it isn't directly related to our mission. You know, I think that's really true, you know, because I think here in, you know, in Spokane, I go to a lot of events here to support different programs, you know, that I think they're all youth focused somehow. But I think when we support those programs and show our interest, that in turn comes back on us. You know, when you do something a good way for someone else, it always comes back on you. And I think that's really shows that in our programs that we work with.
Well, it's a good way to put Native Connections front and center in the community and show that you are becoming the hub of the community.
Yes. Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? So on, communication and outreach, in order to keep your, your partners and the people that you're collaborating with in your, in your circle, what are some strategies that you do to reach out to them? How do you stay in touch with your partners, especially, I know we're coming out of COVID, but there's still a lot of places in the United States and Alaska where, social distancing could still be in place, and how are you staying in touch with your partners?
Deborah, I
Mhm.
think we have Tina who has her hand up.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Go ahead,
Go
Tina.
ahead.
It's not me, it's actually Jackie. She was trying to get on her phone and say something, so
Okay.
she's just sharing my computer too, but she's on her phone also, so I think she can hear you. Jackie, are you there? Hold on.
Okay.
They can't hear you on the phone, Jackie, but they can hear you right here.
Hey, this is Jackie. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty, so I've kind of been in Tina's office. I wanted to say something earlier. It's a little bit of not related to the polling questions, but a little bit in terms of kind of that outreach and partnerships. When you're talking about the community systems analysis, it really is a good cross-representation of the community. And so we kind of used that as almost like a framework for if we, for example, when we did the Young Women's Empowerment Summit, we tried to get partners or volunteers from all areas of the community systems analysis. I think there are 8 categories. Same with when we developed our Adult Advisory Council. We are moving into just doing a large organizational Christmas giving dinner, and I've proposed that to the organizer to, when they're looking for volunteers, to use from all areas of the community. So while it helps in terms of the community partnerships and having all those names and those connections kind of out in front of you, I think you can use that for a variety of things within the organization. So
Thank you.
Thank you for that information. That's really good.
I like what Carrie Dallas is saying, always have my ears open when there's a knock on the door. Open that door. That's the truth. Never let a warm body go. That's what we used to say.
Right.
Okay. Could we go on to the next slide, please? And it's really important to track and plan your program events. Why is that so important? And how do you track your events? Because, I just looking at the grantees that I work with, they have multiple events in planning all at the same time. And I'm just always blown away about how they can keep track of all these different activities for different age groups with different subjects. So tell us how do you track them? How do you plan these? I'd really like, share a few things with us that you do that is successful. And again, answer us in that you can write something in the chat box or, raise your hand. And let's see here. Let's see here. Okay.
Well, Deborah, I think, Callie Walks over has a comment. She says, strong admin support and have functional process in place. That's so important, because what happens if you don't track and plan? You leave it to chance. And what if you get another position and you leave the work that you're doing with Native Connections and you started this effort and you haven't tracked or planned the work? Then what happens?
And I think it's important too, with these, your indicators, because I think with your quarterly reports that you have to do for SAMHSA or your semi-annual or annual reports, it's always really good to have those planned out and tracked so that you can refer back to those, when it comes time to get those indicators, in there. Let's go to the next slide, please. So, let's see, I think this one's yours, Bobby. Sorry.
That's okay. Carrie, do you have just something to say? You had your hand up.
Yeah, that last slide, I was kind of confused the way you formatted the tracking and planning.
Mhm.
Being new to Native Connections, to me, planning should come before tracking. But in your question, I'm starting to think, you mean tracking your planning or
Good.
plan?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Go back one slide, Greg. Let's go back to that. There you go. That's a good catch. Thank you for that. You are absolutely right. Planning and tracking, that we should have switched those words around.
Thank you for unconfusing me.
No, you are correct. Thank you for that. But you're absolutely
Actually,
right.
you know what, I would add that, planning is a cyclical process.
Uh-huh.
That's
You
true.
plan and track and plan and track. So it's kind of going all the way around in a big circle. And you'll come to the end of the year and start to plan again for your next year. Even though you have your plan, you're going to be tracking things along the way and adjusting those plans. So it's a little bit of both.
Mhm. Yes.
I guess what I was picturing was all my draft notes, the stack of draft notes in the planning. Oh my God.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much for enlightening me.
No problem.
No problem, Carrie.
Uh-huh. Okay, the
Next slide. Okay, so now we'd like to know how should you engage community members in your program? What are some ways? I know that we know that all communities are different. I mean, rural communities are a lot different than some of our urban communities. But how do you engage community members? Because I think depending on where your program is located, we all have to come back to this question: is how do we get people to come? How do we get people engaged? How do we get our community members to come? And then we want to know, how do you get your community members to attend the events? And then who shouldn't you engage in your program? And what do you do? And when do you stop engaging them? What are
Question. There's a trick.
Right? That sounds like it's a trick. It does, but what is it?
I think Wacy Week said food. That is always a draw. Having something there to eat.
That's
very true, and it's
Partnerships, request that, donations, and they do have a $3 head count, $3 per participant. So there's ways, we just talked about this on an RLC. There's ways to plan, right? And then depending on the number of participants that arrive, you have X amount, right? Because you're budgeting and planning, we don't always know how many are going to attend, but I love the idea of requesting some donations, partner up with your local gaming entity and their food restaurant area, and others.
Right.
That's a great point though, Sarah. And I've had communities that I've been working with, whether it's a GONA or some other community event, that they'll they'll get one of their partners to supply the food or to pay for the food. So, that's I'm sorry, I have a cough today, but that's a great point. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Carrie?
Talk about people who don't have the same mission or, have a whole different objective in their programming. At one of our events, in a different grant, we used the county diabetes program because they needed to do food demos.
Mhm.
And so they knew we were attracting people. And so our numbers were big enough that they were interested in also coming and providing a food demo if they fed it, if they fed the people they wanted to do a food demo. So
Creative, exactly.
Uh-huh.
That's a smart way to use your resources.
Yes.
Valerie's got a comment. Other partners bring in door prizes. Can a door prize be food?
I think at Thanksgiving and Christmas, you see that. Yeah, I seen a sign around here that has for turkey giveaway if you come to the event. I think one of our clinics is giving out a turkey dinner if you come and get your COVID boosters. So,
Ah,
that would be a program of, that would be really good to partner with for the youth part. But anyway, let's see.
awesome.
Well, our next slide, please.
Good interaction. So the next batch of questions is one all focused around sustainability. What is sustainability? What is your program sustainability? When you begin working on sustainability within your program? And what is a sustainability best practice?
Mhm. Mhm.
Boy, that's a big 25-cent word, isn't it? Sustainability. I remember when I first heard about it, I kept thinking, trying to wrap my mind around it, but it makes sense. And I think people do it from the beginning that they plan their Native Connections work.
Mhm.
well, not only the staff, but I know that community, has told me, oh, you come around here and you do your work and then you're here for 4 years and then you're gone and you let the people down, so they're discouraged, like
Mhm.
they're kind of do I tell you anything or do I say anything because it's only going to be here for 4 years, 3 years or 5 years, however long the grant is.
Mhm.
So not just for, the program, the grant, but for the community, sustainability is very important. Something that they can depend on to assist them, help them develop, when do you begin working on your sustainability? I think the moment the community says, we need help with this. And the grants are great, to build a foundation and policy and procedure. And and for the best practice is keeping the people engaged,
Mhm.
finding those key holders. Is that what you call them? In the
Stakeholder?
stakeholders in the community, tribal leadership. Because also in the urban setting, I just moved back to the res and I'm noticing the reluctancy of stepping forward, the reluctancy of saying, I'm thinking about suicide. And then there's the taboos. And then there's the elders who don't want to talk about it. And there's all these things that are kind of barriers. And so as long as you have somebody that's stepping forward, others will say, oh, maybe I could talk about it. Maybe I can step forward. And so the best practice is keeping people involved, believing in the same thing. And that way you have that support from like tribal leaders and they might have resources.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you for that. Thank you for those
Thank
words.
you, Carrie.
Mhm. Let's see. How about we go to the next slide, please? Okay.
And then we pass it to Sarah.
Okay.
All right, let me share my screen. Give me a moment, folks. I need Greg to stop sharing his screen.
Okay.
Deborah, let me know when you see it.
Okay. We
Okay,
can see it.
thank you so much. We're switching to a little bit of a different presentation now. So we've been talking a lot about the community systems analysis and thinking about Native Connections. The point behind Native Connections is to what? Make Native connections. And so when you think about what kind of connections you're going to make on behalf of the children and youth and the families that you serve, we need only to look as far as the image that you're looking at in front of you. In the center is a set of children and families, and surrounding that image are a number of systems and services that are in most communities, not all, but most. And you might have additional systems and service sectors in your community that aren't represented here, but we have things like from the health sector, we've got your health clinic, behavioral health clinics, your hospitals. In the education sector, you might think that there are different kinds of schools, public and private. Tribal college might be nearby. There might be a university not too far away. Under the community sector, we might have an existing Boys and Girls Club. It might be in your same building, or you might be the Boys and Girls Club too. There might be a YMCA or a project venture working there. AmeriCorps or Senior Corps might be active in the community. For spiritual leaders, you might have also a culture camp that might be active, and other cultural language teachers available at, they need only to be reached out to. In the tribal leadership sector, there are maybe some urban programs, housing. HUD people, you know, they have a lot of resources and they don't get asked for a lot of assistance, but sometimes you can reach out and ask for them to get involved. Social services certainly have a stake to play. Elders obviously want to get involved. And there might be a transportation system in if you're in the urban areas. Law enforcement, that's a real big one for me. And I kind of shift from the education, thinking of the school resource officers, into thinking about public safety officers, probation, courts, court system people. Your judges often want to get involved and they're not asked to get involved very often. And if you're in Alaska, the VPSOs, they're all about town. They know what's going on in their community and they're a great resource. And then up at the top, looking at a grocery store, boy, aren't those the best partners? They're the ones that help you raise a little bit of funding. They have a connection to where the food is. Casinos are a real good one. Other retail stores, gas stations, gas cards. And then also, if you're doing events outside, you might be working with a BLM or subsistence hunting and fishing grounds, or other gathering or grazing or tribal sacred spaces. So there's a whole sector of places to reach out to and think outside the box. It's tough if you're a shy person, but I'm a shy person. Having to reach out and ask people to get involved is a part of the job. So the community system analysis is a really good tool to use. You don't have to use it, but it's there, and it adds a little bit of sophistication to the work that you're doing if you choose to use it. It's a document. It's not very long, but it kind of gets you started in the foundation of assessing the strengths in your community, managing the connections that you have already started, and helping you collect meaningful data that identifies gaps in the services that you're working on to serve youth. So the community system analysis tool process starts by asking you to identify those systems in your community that you want to and can work with. Then provide space for you to define resources across systems. That could take a little bit of time. Get your community advisory board involved in this. Then it asks you to document the contact information from each system. You might say, well, I already have a Rolodex, or I have my phone filled with that, or I have a database. The CSA tool actually helps you pull all this data information into one location, one source. And you don't have to use it, like we said before, but you should be having one central document for all of this information. For example, if you leave, your successor can come in and get started without losing any time. So you'll document contact information for each system. Then the CSA tool provides a space for you to locate and map resources across systems, identify event collaboration planning and information sharing, and then it gives you a chance to really sit back and look at the information that you've collected and analyze. Ask the so what? Okay, we have all this information, now what? And then you identify your training and technical assistance needs. This just kind of gives you a sense of what one of the pages of the CSA looks like. And again, we're collecting information on different sectors. In the health and services systems sector, for example, at the top, it's color coded. It's not, it's not a big deal. It's just collecting your name, title, phone, email, and notes. The kind of notes that I would collect are things like, this person is only available on Wednesday mornings to talk, or the judge is in session until he's free on Friday mornings, or the grocery store gets a fresh load of flowers on Thursdays. So make sure you, if you're going to look for flowers for an event, reach out then. And little notes that really help make things special. The CSA also provides a space for you to put in a map of your community. This is an example that we pulled out from Google Maps. This is Lac du Flambeau, and it's just getting started. You can see these plus signs on there that are color coded. Those are to represent where different services and sectors of the community are, your law enforcement, schools, clinics, but hopefully this kind of a map, maybe you'll find a close-up map or a better map, but you could populate it with all the community partners that you have. You can see how far away they are or how close, or the ones that you have not or have reached out to already. The aim is to fill up the map, make sure that you get it filled with all of your partners. Everyone's going to be a partner. Should be a bumper sticker, Deborah. Another popular part of the CSA tool is that it helps you kind of look at documenting teamwork across services and systems. And what do I mean by that? You might be creating a joint event, such as a DJ night for youth. And looking across these sectors, you've got health, education, community, faith-based, tribal, village leadership, law enforcement, economic, natural resources. You've got a big event you've been planning for. It's in the spring, and a lot of things need to be done. Apparently, the documentation here is that a lot of groups have posted flyers for you. You can see that at the top. People could see it. The casino donated water. That's great. Powwow grounds were used, so natural resources gets credit for that. The housing authority made a donation for the event. I don't know what it was, but we documented that they made a donation. So you see here, we're starting to collect data. This is actual data of what people have contributed to an event. This is important. It might not seem like a lot, but it is. So what do we do with this data? Well, we create a real fancy pie chart with it. You say, oh, Sarah, this is a great pie chart. What does it mean to me? And maybe I can make it my own. Well, in the CSA, this table, I almost call it a matrix, Deborah. This table is connected to the pie chart. Now, the CSA is created in a Microsoft Word document. And so if you have Microsoft Office, you'll have Excel and PowerPoint as well. So this Microsoft Word document, the CSA, is connected to Excel, and you can go in and make changes to the table, which will change the numbers in the pie chart. So you say, Sarah, I like this pie chart. How do I make it my own? This is how you do it. So in the CSA, you just go to the pie chart, go to the gray area right here, and right click, and then this drop down menu will come up where it says edit data in Excel. Click on that, and that will open up an Excel document where you go in and you change those numbers that you had in the table / matrix. So for example, if you had law enforcement got really involved on this particular event, their numbers might go from 1 to, I don't know, 10. So their sector gets a little bit bigger. The good news about that is you can take this pie chart, copy it, paste it into a report, and share that with tribal council to show, over the course of a year, we got law enforcement to really get involved. At the very beginning, they were very little involved, and they got a little bit more. Now they come to us and ask us when we're going to do another event. So you can start to show the progression of the work that you're doing across building partnerships and building services for youth. So that just gives you a little bit of a glimpse into the CSA tool. And I'm going to turn it back to Bobby. And I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Sarah. So as you can tell, it's like a lot of information in regards to the CSA. It could get very detailed, but I just thank Sarah for sharing all that information with us. And
Did anybody have any questions or thoughts or concerns about the tool? Oh, by the way, that tool is just the beginning.
Right.
You can add more to it. You could let your advisory board members get a hold of it, and they might have something to say or something
Or
to add
add.
to it. You could add your own charts and tables and expand the tool to collect data that you want to follow. You might want to collect data on maybe returning veterans. Are you serving any veterans? You might want to create a tool, a document, a page in the CSA on your fundraising efforts or future grants that you might want to go after. So you can just use that tool as something to just as a foundation and build into it.
Exactly. Exactly. You make it your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's how all of our templates are built, is that, you know, they're all meant to be adapted, you know, for your use. You can put your own branding on these if you want to. You know, you can work with your grantee technical assistant to either expand on them or change them. And, you know, throughout, we've been using this successfully. We've been successfully using this community systems analysis since cohort 1. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on it, that it really helps you really look at who you are collaborating with, and it helps you plan collaborations. And I think when in our grant, you know, a big part of these grants, kind of one of the overarching themes is always to increase your community capacity. And I think that's one of the things that this template, this community systems analysis does do. But I've also seen grantees that have their own way of keeping track of this information. And we're always interested in seeing, you know, how grantees do that also, so we can roll their ideas into these templates that we're using. So
I think it helps you kick up your A game or bring your A game to this work, which is what I'm finding. SAMHSA really does want data on local efforts. Any comments or questions? I only check the chat box.
No, I don't see any questions.
So if anybody wants to unmute themselves, if you have any comments, you know, for our webinar today, successes, things that maybe haven't worked so well, you know, or what you could do with this, or if you've used it, if you haven't used it and you would like to, you know, we're welcoming any questions or comments.
Or any suggestions on other pages that we should add to it. That would be cool.
Yeah.
I have questions. Your tool, excuse me, in your toolkits, are there any like evaluation questions that we could probably utilize?
Ooh, now you're giving us ideas.
We're in our part
I'm supposed
3.
to say yes.
We do have an evaluation toolkit, and I think that's going to be part of our part 3 webinar when we're looking at developing the strategic action plan, staying on the path. So that's one that I would really encourage you to attend. And then at part 4 also, when we're looking at our part 4 webinar. Well, part 3 is roadmap for the success. You know, that's going to be developing the strategic action plan. Staying on the path is part 4. And that's where we'll go into data collection evaluation a little bit more in that one too. And then we'll have those toolkits. That's, you know, one of the things about the Native Connections approach is that we do have various toolkits, and these are really our evaluation toolkit. You know, I think that's about a 78-page document, but that was developed with several grantees from cohorts 1, 2, 3, and 4. They had input on that toolkit, and we also had some Indigenous evaluators, PhDs, that did help us, you know, create that toolkit. So again, you know, that is on our Native Connections Resource Center. Policies and Procedures Toolkit, we're going to be looking at that one probably in part 3 and part 4. That'll be featured on there. On today, we do have some documents. We have the CSA template available for a download. I think Greg is going to put those in the chat box, a link to those. We also have a community collaboration or community engagement toolkit that we're offering for a download today. There's one of them. And then we also have, I think there's 3 downloads altogether for today. Community Engagement Toolkit, the Native Connections Approach graphic. That's the one that Bobby went over pretty extensively earlier in the webinar. And then we have a Healthy Partnerships fact sheets. And you're going to find as we go through these four core webinars that we're going to be putting in here a lot of fact sheets. And our fact sheets are usually from 1 to 4 pages. And they're like a concentrated piece of information on that specific topic. So those are meant to be shared with your community advisory boards or community partners. You know, those are for you to use as you need. And then our toolkits are, again, these are really a big collaborative effort whenever we put forth a toolkit. These usually take us over a year, maybe year and a half to develop, because we do have a lot of grantee involvement in developing these toolkits. All these toolkits could not have been done without our grantees. That's a big part of these toolkits. So those are lessons learned over and over that you're going to find in these toolkits and how to help you do your job better. Let's see. Maybe we'll go to the last slide. Let's see. We've been talking a little bit about our upcoming webinars. Again, this is a 4-part webinar series. And part 2 next week, the next one in a couple of weeks on December 6th, that's really going to be focused on the community readiness process. And again, it's going to be a hybrid webinar. We're going to have a webinar and then we're going to have a Prezi within the webinar. That's going to be really go into the community readiness. We're also going to have the template on that one also, and we're going to have some other fact sheets that'll be available for download. Part 3, a roadmap for success, will be focusing on our strategic action plan, really looking at a strong vision statement. How do you use SMART, S-M-A-R-T? What is that acronym all about? How do you use that to make your objectives stronger? We've got a really good Prezi developed for that one. And then staying on the path, implementing your program, sustainability, keeping your program moving forward in a positive way. So those are the all 4 parts for this series that we're starting today. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about a really important event that we have coming up at the end of November and the beginning of December. That's going to be our first regional site visit, which is going to be, again, we love our acronyms. East Central Southern States, ECSS, Regional Site Visit. That's going to be in Mayetta, Kansas at the Prairie Band Potawatomi Casino. The dates for that are November 29th to December 1st. Now that's open up for at this time, I think it's open up for anybody to attend. And in your grants, you might want to refer back to the funding announcement or your NOA or in your conversation with your GPO, but these are referred to as grantee meetings. And so we're calling them regional site visits. So these are in your grants. And I believe you can speak to your GPOs about, reallocating or, funding these so that you can go to these. These are approved for you to go. If you can't attend, we have a whole Zoom process ready. You can attend the whole RSV on Zoom. You can take part in virtually. Mm-hmm. You can take part and listen in on every presentation. All the presentations are grantees. The GTAs are not doing any presentations. All we're doing there is organizing it and facilitating it. Everything is all grantee focused. The presentations, the poster board sessions, which are really great. Every program will be developing a poster board to where they will be talking about their programs. So if you have not gotten the link to the dashboard for this specific RSV, please contact your GTA and they will get that out to you right away, because we have been sending those emails out consistently for the last month. So we'd really like to see you, registered virtually if you can't attend. So this is the first of 4 that we have planned this year. We also have another one coming up in California. We don't have the dates on that. I think the dates is sometime in February. We're still February. We're still looking at a location. We have one that's going to be in Alaska, and I think that's going to be in Juneau. And I think that one is May. And then the last one is going to be Montana, Wyoming, which will be in Missoula, Montana. And we're looking at the first week in June for that one. So all of those will also have a virtual section to them, so that if you can't attend in person, you can attend virtually. And by the end of all of these 4 RSVs, you will have met all 120 Native Connections grantees. You've heard presentations from all of them, or most of them, and you will be able to make contacts with them. So again, part of Native Connections is really making contacts, making those connections, and that's how we're helping you do that through all of these regional site visits. So I really welcome you to either attend in person or virtually. And so that brings us to the top of the hour. Our last slide, please. So I really want to thank you for joining us today, for taking part in this. And each of the following 3 webinars are all going to be interactive. You know, we'll have a lot of polling questions for you. So please come back again and join us for the next 3 sections. And thank you and have a good day.
Bye, everybody.
Glitch, thank you all.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. I think it's just us.
You want me to stop recording?
Yes, please. So we'll just do a